Exhibitionistas, Emily here. So glad that you could join us this week. We're going to be looking at Moroccan artist Soufiane Ababri's new commission. Their mouths were full of bumblebees, but it was me who was pollinated. It's a group of drawings that explores questions of desire and queerness and diaspora, but in possibly the most innocent, joyful, wonderful, unexpected way. It was an exhibition that I'm not sure I expected to like it quite as much as I did. It's in a space in the Barbican that was new to me, that I'd never been to before, that is really, really quite special and unique. It featured a chain curtain, of all things, but it was really wonderful, and Joanna and I had a great time talking about it. So I hope that you enjoy it too. Thanks so much for joining us. Hello. Welcome back to Exhibitionistas. For those of you who are new here, on this podcast, we talk about the thrills and the chills, the highs and the lows, the comedy and the drama of exhibitions, particularly contemporary art ones. We love going to shows and talking about them, and the joy of that is multiplied exponentially by having you here with us. My name is Emily Harding. I'm an art lover and an exhibition goer.
And hello, I am Joanna P.R. Neves, an independent writer, curator, and artistic director of Drawing Now Art Fair. So, Emily, this is our 10th episode. Can you believe it?
No way. Monumental.
So happy. And it is the first time we'll be talking about an exhibition at the Barbican, which is a brutalist historical building that we both love so much. So I'm really, really excited about this one. And also, I want to say hi to our listeners in Japan, our listeners in South Africa, in Moldova, in Sweden. I mean, you are listening to the podcast all over the world, and it fills us with joy. It really fills us with joy. So come with us today to the Barbican. You're going to love it. You know, stick around. It's a good one that we have today.
Oh, that's so cool. Hi, guys. So before we get started, Joanna, how was your week in culture?
Oh my. It was a good one. It was a good one. I went to a concert this week, believe it or not. So my husband and I went to see the Kills live at Troxy, which is a concert hall in the East End, and it was everything we expected it to be, and more than that. It was incredible. This was really special because when I was your lodger 12 years ago, which is how we met and became fast friends.
God, 12 years ago. That is also kind of monumental.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Can you believe it? 12 years ago.
Yeah.
So I was on my own. So my husband and my kids were still in France, and I stayed 3 months with you. And thank the gods and the goddesses that it was with you, that you really saved me at that time. And the Kills as well. So both Diogo and I were listening to the Kills separately. And it was kind of a way to be together, you know. But other than that, the Kills are just amazing. We love them. I mean, each song is a banger. So we were so happy to go. So, you know, they made me think of you and me because there's just two of them. It's incredible.
Our duo.
But I have a bit of gossip for you.
Ooh, do tell.
So when I wrote to my friend, we have a WhatsApp group with another couple. And I said, listen, we're going to the Kills concert. And my friend said, say hi to Damien. Who is Damien Lewis, the actor?
What?
Yeah. So people will know him from Homeland, the series, the American series Billions, outside of the UK. But like, he's a really, really established actor who we find quite charming and handsome. Let's be very real about it. So my friend particularly really loves him. And the thing is, you know that he had this horrible tragedy in his life. So his wife passed away, Helen McCroy, from cancer. It was a really horrible thing. I think he even published the letter that she left him, saying that he really needed to get a girlfriend, but not during her funeral. Like, he had to be. Like, she was incredible. She was so funny. It was like really an incredible story, an incredible way to go. I mean, in the way he talked about it was incredible. And when I saw, you know, Alison Moore's Heart on stage. It was really magical.
Mm.
She was shy and at the same time engaged with us, locked eyes with us, and waved to a guy who was on his own in the first line. They were just such good people. You could see that they were just these empathetic, beautiful people. And I kept thinking, oh, I'm so happy that they're together because Damian
Ah,
Lewis is going out with her. And I
ah,
kept thinking, oh, like I'm a 100-year-old granny, basically. I was just like, oh, it's so nice. Yeah,
so
such a
nice to
good
see a
girlfriend.
happy ending for this story.
And as we
Oh,
were going out at the end of the concert, I see kind of this really charming looking man. I elbow Diogo and I'm like, I think that's Damian Lewis. And it was. And he was surrounded by 3 or 4 people in this amazing London respectful way, or British respectful way of celebrities. You can be a celebrity in this country, no issues. They
yeah.
were just like staying apart from him and just saying like, oh, we love you. Oh, it's so nice to see you. And I was like, oh, they're still together, Diogo. They're still together. It's so amazing that because she's a good person.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
Diogo was just like with the biggest smile, just thinking about the concert, like completely oblivious to my,
yeah.
to my granny
You had the whole
sensibility.
romance subplot going on, and he was
Completely.
like, "I love this song." Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. He was just like still buzzing from the concert. And I
Oh.
wrote to my friend Amanda, believe it or not, we did see Damien. We had
So
lunch with her and she was like, you didn't take a picture with him? Which I would never. I would
never.
rather die
Yeah, I know, me too.
than Diogo would do it, And Diogo was like, I wanted to do it, like really like digging a hole for me and pushing me into it. And I was like, why didn't you? You could have just taken a picture with him. I cannot do that. I'm not
No,
that person.
I know, me either. I mean, I get
How
the
are you with
urge.
celebrities?
I get the urge, you know? I mean, so the kinds of celebrities that we have through my work are a little different.
Not the
Yeah.
same. They're not rock and roll.
We had Ban Ki-moon on Friday, Theresa May came through, so it's a little bit different. I have to say, I did get really starstruck when, Jacinda Ardern came to work. I mean, yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
yes.
She
Yes.
oh, she is
Is she everything you want her to be?
she was, yeah, and,
Oh,
I did, an online event that Hillary Clinton contributed to, and look, I can't help it, I love her, it's like I grew up I'm a woman of a certain age who grew up in the States, and my dad it was like, as I was sort of becoming more politically aware, and I could see how much my dad hated her, that only stoked my fire of love for her, and I get it's
oh, you
like
rebel.
I know, right? Yeah, exactly, yeah. And I get, like, there's lots of, shortcomings there.
So, how
So,
was your week in culture after I just geeked out completely?
I'm gonna say that my week in culture was not as good as yours, Joanna. I think you win this week in culture because once
I'm gonna take
again
it.
once again, Netflix, watching Ripley. So this is a new take on the talented Mr. Ripley. And I mean, it's great, but it's kind of a mixed bag. There's so much to be said for it. The acting is tremendous. Andrew Scott, in particular, who plays Tom Ripley. He is just holding so much in his face in the absence of dialogue, which I
Mm.
think is a supreme challenge as an actor. And I mean, it's stunning to look at. It's in black and white. It's in Italy in the 50s. I mean, everything is absolutely just oozing with gorgeousness. It's, almost intolerable. It's
That's
like
a good way
every,
of putting it.
yeah, but it's like every frame is this black and white gem, and it holds attention, which is good because I mean, look, this is not a news story, right? Patricia Highsmith wrote the book The Talented Mr. Ripley in
Hmm.
1955.
Yeah.
The downside is the characters. So the book is about people who've just left university. So in the Talented Mr.
Exactly.
Ripley movie of 1999 with Gwyneth Paltrow and Matt Damon and Jude Law, and Philip Seymour Hoffman's in that movie. They're all roughly the
Yes.
same age, and
Yeah.
they're young. They're all sort of young. And in this movie, or in this version of it, which is a series, Andrew Scott, who is 48. and then you have Dakota Fanning, who's 30. And then you have the person who plays Freddie, the Philip Seymour Hoffman character, Elliot Sumner, is a brilliant actor. Sting is their father, which was a little bit of a nice factoid.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. But they're only 33 years old. It just was like, what is going on here? I mean, they set out to say that it's sort of that, Dickie Greenleaf has been in Italy for 10 years to try to make it like he's in his early 30s. I don't know. The magic of movies can only go so far. The thing about The Beauty is that it started to get in the way of the story. You could tell that the cinematographer was just like, oh, let's just get a few more shots of statues, and oh, isn't this architecture brilliant? And let's get a few more of those in there. There's this cat that shows up at a certain point, and Peter was like, if I have to see that fucking cat one more time, it's like, it's like the cat in a certain light and in the window, and it's like in the beginning you're like, oh, that's cute, and then you're just like, again, why? What is this doing for the story? It just ended up being slack in the rope of the story rather than really lifting the story, which is, But yeah, I mean, it's good. I mean, I think the book is great. I mean, it's a perfect book. It's like it holds this tension. It has these characters that you love to loathe, and you kind of care, you want to know more about them, but you're repelled by them at the same time. And I think that the series gets that with the characters. It's just, I think that some of the casting was maybe not as good as it. Make them all around 48, just make it consistent, I mean.
I think you're a bit more persistent than I am, because I watched, I think, 1 or 2 episodes of it, and I found it intensely, aggressively boring. I really could not endure it.
It wasn't just boring. It was aggressively boring. Yeah, no.
Honestly.
It's ponderous.
It's like they were trying. They were trying to test you. Anyway, so who are we talking about this week, Emily?
Yeah, so this week we'll be talking about Soufiane Ababri's exhibition. Their mouths were full of bumblebees, but it was me who was pollinated. It's an exhibition at the Curve at the Barbican. I have to say, I'm so keen to know what you're going to say about this, Joanna, because there were a couple things in there that I just thought, oh, that is so up Joanna's street. So, I mean, we'll get there definitely.
You know me very, very well. I was all over it.
Yeah.
I was all over it. Loved it. Yep.
So for those of you who haven't been to the Barbican, it's an enormous arts complex in London. It's, as Joanna said, it's a brutalist architecture that has a real presence in London. And the Curve is a really unique space within it. I've actually not been to the Curve before. So that was quite cool for me to go there for the first time. So we'll get there in a bit more about the exhibition and the space. But for now, let's meet Soufiane. And I feel like I can say just Soufiane because when I was going to the Barbican, I am 99% sure I saw him on the sidewalk walking away from the Barbican, and I was walking towards it. So much so that when I got to the exhibition, there was a guy, kind of sitting on the outside of the doorway to the Curve. And I was like, was Soufiane Ababri just here? I'm pretty sure I just saw him. And he was like,
you're joking.
Yeah. And he was like, well, I don't know, maybe, maybe he was here. I don't know. So it could have not
been
him.
This is the celebrity sighting episode,
exactly.
For sure.
But it was one of those terrible moments because, I'd been looking at interviews of him and videos of him. So his face had been in my mind. And, but then when I saw this person on the street, it just the gears did not jump into action as quickly as I wanted to. It wasn't until sort of after he was a fair bit away that I was like, oh, I think that was Soufiane Ababri, But anyway, so Soufiane Ababri.
Well, nothing to regret because you would not have taken a selfie with him. So that's fine.
Of course. So Soufiane Ababri was born in 1985 in Morocco. He lives and works between Paris and Tangier. He explores themes of queerness and diaspora. His work encompasses drawing, performance, and installation. So, all of those things are demonstrated in this exhibition as well.
And on the 30th of June, there will be a performance at the Curve.
I'd love to see it.
Yeah, me too.
I bet it would be
Yeah.
mind blowing. I mean, ugh,
I'm trying to
and
go. Yeah.
yeah, I should put that in my calendar. So I was thinking about, as I've been researching Sufyan, thinking about words that come to mind. And I don't know if this is exactly the right fit, but revolutionary comes to mind. Like he feels
Yeah.
like someone who is, he's not someone who is describing problems. He is offering an antidote to those problems. So, I
Mm.
mean, sometimes you get people who, in their art are saying, maybe even Ariadne a bit, is, in her film is describing structures and, how those lay across society and blackness, etc. Not to say that there's anything wrong with that. I mean, that's a really, really important place for human knowledge to be able to articulate and describe problems. But what I have seen in his work is that he is offering an alternative, a reality that lives alongside sort of the status quo or the norm, if you like, that challenges that, but doesn't necessarily go into describing it and why it's there. I mean, he's interested in immigrants, homosexuals, brown skinned people, the post-colonial generation. These are all the ways that he describes himself, and so he wants to kind of put art together that I mean, I wouldn't even say celebrates. I mean, I don't think he's trying to celebrate even. I think he's just trying to say, here is a reality. Here it is,
Yeah.
and I'm going to allow you to take a very direct look at things that
Mm.
you wouldn't normally have a look at. And he's not trying to sort of rank it, or put a patina of celebration or praise over it. It's just, here it is. Here's what it is. And it kind of made me think of the TV show Schitt's Creek, which we love, of course,
Mm.
and how there was no homophobia in that show. So in that
Mm.
show, they weren't trying to say, here's the struggles of a gay person, and here's what happens when a gay person comes out, and they tell their family and the reactions of others. None of that is discussed in Schitt's Creek. It's just gay people are a part of life, and it's accepted, and here's how they operate in the world. And it shows you a depiction of a way of life without homophobia. And I feel like in a similar way, this is what Soufiane Ababri is doing in his work, which the more I kind of found out about him and what he's doing, I just found that really admirable. But that's not the only way that he's revolutionary. I mean, he is revolutionary in how he works. So he's not saying, okay, here's the way that art works. Here's all the things that I learned at art school, and I am going to try to reform this from the inside. He's not doing that. He's not a reformer. He's saying, basically, fuck that noise. I am going to do something completely different. And I saw this interview with him from 5 years ago, and this was for his exhibition Making of Music. Here's a Strange and Bitter Crop. It was a show at Space. So he said that I'm going to make a conscious decision to stop what I was doing before and make a break with what I learned in art school and from the normative and stereotypical French education system. So he was born in Morocco, but he moved to France when he was 18. And that's where drawing has no important place and is even marginalized. So he goes to drawing because it is the antithesis of sort of the high art that is praised in art school. And he also does this thing where he does his drawing in bed. He has this whole section of works that are called bed works. So his idea is that in a lot of the great works of art, you see the muse as being extraordinarily passive, lying down somewhere, a naked woman on a sofa, or black and brown people that might be just sort of lounging around or what have you. And he specifically draws lying down because even that is the antithesis to how you're told you're supposed to do it. I mean, even if you were drawing quote unquote correctly, you might be at a drafts table or something like that. But he does it from a reclined position. But yeah, so that was, I mean, this whole drawing thing, I imagine, and really, really focusing on that, I imagined that was music to your ears.
Yes, yes. I mean, he was born in 85. So, of course, back in the day when he went to France, I mean, he speaks French fluently. It's probably his second language because Morocco was a French protectorate for a long, long time until the 50s. And of course, French is still a very strong language there. And that's kind of the already this condition of the colonized country and the colonized country through the language is very strong in Moroccan artists and writers and even filmmakers. And when you hear him speak, because I also kind of listened to a video of his, I mean, French, pure French. So, there's already that kind of dichotomy in the identity already. And then you add drawing to it, which, of course, when he studied back in the day, drawing was not recognized, really. I think that has changed within academia in France. I have to say that because now there is a chair dedicated to drawing in an expanded sense. So sometimes, my colleague Barbara Soyer was the director of that chair, and she did an amazing job. She, contacted artists who were working with drawing, but also how drawing connected to, say, for example, motion capture devices. So she invited Michel Paysan, for example, to speak. He's working with investigation in neurology, in the neurology department, and he's drawing with his eyes through motion capture devices. And so, there's lots of things being done at the moment in France. But again, to your point, they are kind of embedded in academia as research or as being very topical things like, say, a vitrine maker or, not vitrine, a vitrail. I have the word in French. Tainted glass art, all of those things, those people she invited, of course, kind of are embedded in a certain tradition. And I agree that drawing is still kind of, we're trying for it not to be, but the recognition of drawing is so recent. It started in the 60s through conceptual art a lot. So conceptual art picked up photography and drawing as those two mediums, and not genres anymore, but mediums. So from the idea of media, as the two art languages that weren't tainted by tradition and that weren't bourgeois. So drawing kind of suddenly came to the forefront of artistic languages because it wasn't carrying that tradition. So in some ways, Soufiane Ababri is connecting to that political gesture, but with a completely different style. So his
Yeah.
style of drawing is the very skilled, unskilled drawing that I love, of which we will be talking about later on. But I just wanted to say, to corroborate what you just said, the first drawing that you see in the exhibition is a scene. So the drawings are very colorful and they are very laboriously made, like a child would make drawings. So they're kind of, everything is, colored in, and the shapes are very approximative but super expressive. And so you see a billiard table and someone with the black ball trying to hit it, like the final ball that you kind of hit in a billiard table or a snooker table. And there's a hole where the ball is going. and you can see that he's going to hit it, and he's going to probably, get it right.
Mm.
And then there's a sentence saying working on changing the rules. So that's the first drawing that you see, which
Mm-hmm.
I found really, really interesting, and kind of says what, it does what you're saying, which is, I am not here to complain. I am here to show you a reality. And through this sharing of experiences, maybe we'll change the rules together. That's
Yeah.
beautiful,
Yeah,
way of
totally. Yeah.
starting an exhibition.
Yeah, because the cue ball, with his cue, he is hitting the black ball to the cue ball. So obviously it's the opposite way around, which is good. Yeah. But I have to say, just to back up to working in bed, what a good idea. What a good idea. I mean, it made me think like we should have like a bed for sleeping and a bed for working somewhere. I mean, I went to Monticello, so the home of Thomas Jefferson years ago when I lived in DC. And he had this setup in his bedroom where it was like the bed was in the middle and it was essentially like if you imagine a wall between two rooms, imagine a break in that wall for a bed. So you almost
Mm.
I mean, from
Oh,
how I remember it, it's almost like the bed is what connects the two rooms. And on one side is, a desk where he can do his writing and that kind of thing. And on the other side is sort of a reading room. I remembered like books and a chair and things like that. So it
I'm
was like,
salivating.
I
My
exactly,
ideal
right?
space.
I mean, yeah, yeah, exactly. I was like, genius. This is genius. And I mean, obviously he's going to have, a slave, as a slaveholder, bring him coffee and things like that to his room. So a very unsultry, terrible underbelly to all this. But the
Yeah.
setup, the hermit in me completely romanticized the idea,
Oh my. Oh
God.
my. Oh my. Oh
Yeah.
my. Oh my. I know a few artists who have beds in their studios. And I had a sofa bed in my studio before, in my office
N
before.
nice.
That was exactly for that, because at a certain point you need to sleep in order for the words to set in and to settle in your mind.
Yeah,
That's when I reconnected with sleeping. I've reconnected with sleeping very recently, and I acted upon it. I was like, yes, I need to have a
nice.
sofa bed, and it was really, really amazing. I didn't use it as often as I thought I would because I'm
Sure.
always running behind some deadline, but that's kind of incredible. And also, to connect with Soufiane Ababri, the thing that he talks about is that, and you mentioned the slave who would have been serving Thomas Jefferson. In the 19th century in France, there was a bit of a anesthetization of Arab bodies,
Mm,
and and black and brown bodies in general, and they were often represented in painting lying down.
mm,
And there's this connection with the idea of being lazy. Because, of course,
mhm,
Europeans always think that, other cultures are lazy. And so for him, working lying down is also this thing of, well, yes, I am taking up that stance and I'm making work with it. And I'm also making work that is drawing in a childlike manner that is supposed to bring in another subject, which is that, so the exhibition has a lot of drawings that depict nightlife, that depict this kind of setting in clubs,
mhm.
where you dance and when sometimes you kind of like cruise. So I'm going to make a reference here to, it's the second time we talk about Sarah Marshall's
Oh, yeah.
podcast, You're Wrong About.
Nice.
She has an amazing episode at the moment going on. I think it's in part 2 with Marcus McCann about George
George
Michael.
Michael, yes. I've heard the first
Yes,
episode, I haven't heard the second one yet, yeah.
it just came out. And so You're Wrong About is usually about maligned people, and trying to understand their side of the story. So she's fascinated with Tony Harding, Britney Spears,
Anya,
all of
yeah.
those people. There's another one about Britney Spears that's quite interesting. And so George Michael's, the second episode, is really interesting because Marcus McCann talks about cruising. And he talks about cruising in a really interesting way, which is he talks about what cruising is, which is basically just going to outdoor spaces where, you can meet people and you can have sex in public spaces, but not like in public, like not, in the wild, in public bathrooms, in hiding spaces, but meeting publicly. And so there's a whole vocabulary to it. There's a whole ritual to it. So you first lock eyes with someone, blah, blah, blah. And so because George Michael was infamously caught cruising, basically, or in a bathroom with another guy by the police and was arrested,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a whole thing. It was forced to come out because of that. And Marcus McCann says something really interesting, which is that at the time, cruising and in general being homosexual had this thing attached to it, which was think of the children.
Oh, yeah.
What about the children?
What about the children? Yeah,
What
clutching your
about them?
pearls and yeah, exactly.
Clutching your pearls and thinking, which is still the language now used with trans people, which is
Sure.
they're trying to pervert our children, they're perverted beings, and cruising is horrible because they're exposing themselves. And
Yeah.
there's a study that was made, according to Marcus McCann, which was horrible. Basically, the police placed cameras in those bathrooms to see what the behavior was.
That's a
And the behavior was really
that's a violation of
yeah,
rights, surely. I mean, that's
yes.
unacceptable. You can't do that.
You can't do that. This was in the 80s and it was
Ugh.
just shameful. But it was interesting because the result was that, men, 2, 3 men, whatever, would be having sex in a public bathroom. And as soon as you could hear a creak of a door opening, they would run away and hide or
Mm.
dress themselves. So this just showed that no one was exposing themselves. They were not keen on being found out. And so no children were harmed in the making of this sexual pleasure of cruising whatsoever. The idea is that they were not wanting anyone to kind of
Well, and
step in and
also,
see them.
it's like where else are they gonna meet people? I mean, gay clubs are, being closed by police
Being
at that
closed.
time.
Yeah.
It's like there's huge.
Raided.
Yeah, and I mean, it was pre-internet, so you're not gonna meet people online. It's like, yeah, if you make it so that there's absolutely no other way for people to connect, for gay people to connect, of course, they're gonna find a way, and that was it. I mean,
And that was it. Yeah.
yeah.
And there was nothing wrong with it. And like Marcus McCann says, it's not just a gay thing. Come on. There's cruising in the heterosexual world, and there's a lot of ways of having sex, and it concerns no one. And it certainly does not concern the children. And Soufiane Ababri says that for him, drawing like a child is also a way of bringing some innocence into this realm of this world that is his world, basically, and to
Mm,
his identity, which is his identity, not only as a gay man, but also as a non-white man, also as an
mhm,
Arab man, a hairy man. There's a lot of hair,
mm.
body hair in the
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
drawings that is so beautiful because it is the gesture of drawing. Hair, just
yeah,
black graphite or black colored pencils. It's just beautiful. And he says, and also some gay people that are depicted there, all of them were children at some point. And
right.
it was difficult being a gay
Aw.
child in Morocco. It's even difficult here, to be honest, because he doesn't separate. I mean, he does separate the specific context in Morocco, because there's a drawing called L'Embuscade, which means the ambush. Where you see people crawling, and the performance is also that people crawling in the space. They're crawling outside a nightclub, and you can see the police coming in. And you also have a trans person, so someone who has, male genitalia and breasts. There's a whole community in the drawings, but like you say, it's very ambivalent. You don't really
Mm,
know what's going on, and there's this innocence of pleasure and
Mm.
of being together and togetherness. And I think one of my favorite works are really the bed works, where it's a very long, long, long drawing.
Yeah,
I can
yeah.
tell you exactly the length of the drawing. Oh, they don't have the measurements in their captions. Oh, that's too bad. But they're kind of like 80, 90 centimeters long and
Mhm.
and like 40, 50 centimeters high. And there's just these bodies, these elongated bodies. There's one on top of the other, which are kind of incredible. So there really is this idea of bringing a certain kind of drawing to a space like the Barbican.
Yeah, I mean, knowing that he is bringing that innocence to the subject matter, and that kind of childlikeness, that just makes my affection for the works grow so much. I mean, this is the reason why knowing this kind of stuff is so important, because like you could easily go in there and be like, colored drawings of, naked men together, like what is this about for me? And it's like when you know like what he is trying to create and what's coming across, both in what he is depicting, how he is depicting it, even how he's working, kind of the bedworks, etc. It just makes it so powerful.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So maybe I should try and describe the exhibition, because I've seen this very strange review in Time Out saying
Hmm.
that he didn't know what to do with the
I
space of the
saw that
curve.
too. I saw that too. I saw that before I went, and so I was very curious, but I would disagree with that reviewer, absolutely. But it is a vibe, like there's a real vibe the second you get into the space. So yes, so
Absolutely.
it's it's
Absolutely.
it's it's called the curve for a reason. It's a curve of the building. And when you go in, it's the mood is dark, like everything is, kind of low light everywhere. And when you walk in, there is the most incredible like hanging curtain of chains. And
Yeah.
that also creates a curve. So it's only kind of right at the beginning, and then there's another hanging curtain of chains at the end that kind of almost make parentheses, if you were looking from
Yeah.
above, around the exhibition. And I loved them so much. Oh my gosh, the touching them. I
Yeah.
honestly, I could have spent so much time just like with
It
it
was a
was
super sensual, yeah.
tactile.
Sensual and dangerous at the same time,
Mm,
because the chains are not big enough to be chains that chain you,
right,
that
right.
kind of are used to prevent movement. So they could be chains used in S&M, or chains just used for necklaces, but they're quite thick. They're too thick to be a necklace, for example. So they're kind of ambivalent. And the thing with the curve, and that's why I was so shocked with the review, was like, this dude did not read the text. Because when he arrived, Soufiane Ababri, to the space, he saw that the space had the same shape as the letter Zain in Arabic, and the letter Zain is the beginning of the word, so it's the sound Z, and so it's the and that's why the title talks about bees who buzz and do the Z sound. So Z for him is representative of a slur, which is a zamel, which is what the F word would mean in, I don't like to say it, the faggot word,
Oh, sure, yeah.
means in Arabic. And so when you want to insult gay men, you just do the Z sound. You don't need to say the whole word. So the Zain letter for him is very expressive in the sense that it makes him think of that slur. So the curtains are also shaped like the curve. And so they kind of reiterate that letter. But the interesting thing is that Zamel actually in the beginning meant a strong friendship between men.
Mm.
So what he's saying, and that's why you're so right in saying that he's not denouncing, he really is kind of showing how you can be friendly with another man. So this, what he says is that the homophobia even prevents men from being close together and from having a beautiful straight friendship or a platonic friendship, and it really prevents men from coming together and
Mm.
sharing experiences. And in a lot of the drawings, it's never the sexual act, it's always before or after, and some of them are even just tender moments between men.
Totally. Yeah, I loved the way that used the physical space to reinforce, that message, and everything is built from that, which is, yeah, really powerful. I mean, I have to say I have not spent much time in Morocco, but in Palestine, I remember when I very first got there in 2005, and seeing young men in Jerusalem holding hands or walking down the street, arm in arm. And, as a Western person, that reads as gay men, I mean, and
Yeah,
I was with my friend and I was like,
yeah.
I didn't expect that, and she was like, yeah, no. I mean, if you
What
ask,
an open society.
yeah, I was like, wow, are they kind of, and it was, she made it clear. It's like, if you asked any Palestinian, they would say there's no homosexuals in Palestine. I mean, that would be the understanding.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But there's more room for heterosexual men to have close physical contact. In my experience in Palestine, there seem to be very, open expressions of affection between heterosexual
Mm.
men. Homosexuality is so repressed. It's gotta come out somewhere, right? Like,
It's got to come out somewhere.
come out
You
some.
have, it's like in football, because we talk about repressed societies in the Middle East, but it's like any football coach, maybe perhaps until 10 years ago, would have said there's no gay people in football,
Mhm.
which is statistically impossible. So let's not pretend that we are such an open society, because we are not. And the spaces where, female football, most of them are lesbians. Like, people say that, oh, most women who play football are lesbians, which, like,
Such
yes
crap.
and no.
Yeah, yes and no, but
And in male football, I'm sure that a lot of coaches will say, no, there's no gay people here, because, football is a manly sport. And I heard that many, many times.
mm,
So, repression comes in many compartments here in the Western, or in Europe, let's say, and also in the Western world, where it is seemingly accepted, but in some ways it's even worse, because outside of London, who's the gay couple who can kiss in public or hold hands, or it's difficult. It can be done, but it's not easy. It's not an easy thing to do. I think it's
yeah,
time for a little break, don't you think, Emily?
I think
Yeah.
so. Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, we'll speak to you in just a little while.
Welcome back, everyone. So, just as we start to talk more about the exhibition, I think it's important for us just to take you into the space of the curve. So, like I said, I've been to the Barbican tons of times and I've never been into the space. And I walked in, it's near the shop, and I saw the promotion of the exhibition on the wall in front of me. And to the left, there were some stairs, and I almost went down there. And then the guy was like, "Oh no, you got to go this way."
Oh,
So it went to the right, and you go through these giant doors, and you are in a very different world than the rest of the
yeah.
museum, than the rest of the complex, really. And you go in, and you're immediately in a dark space. And as we've said, it's a curve, so it curves around, so you can't see the entire space when you go in. And
Oh, good point. Yes.
so all you're seeing is sort of one side is the hanging curtain, which is
Yeah.
a few meters, after you get in. And obviously there's a bit of text on the right hand side when you walk in that talks about the exhibition and about Soufiane. And on the floor, there's a red pathway, so there's a big red stripe on the floor on the right hand side that goes all along the right hand side of the curve that actually goes
Mm.
up the wall as well. So that red stripe is sort of,
Mm.
kind of not halfway up the wall, maybe a quarter up the wall. It's dark. There's kind of mood music going on because he wanted to make it look like scenes from a club. So, but the music is not clubby music. Like, I didn't feel
No.
that I wanted to dance to it. It was sort of, and so you walk in, you've got the red, you've got the chain curtain in front of you. It's dark. You have this mood music, and you don't see any images. You don't see any art until you get past that chain
True.
curtain. And the all of the art is only on the inside of the curve. There's nothing on the outside of the curve other than this red stripe that goes a bit up the wall. Otherwise, it's complete darkness over there. And so
Yeah.
it is a feeling, like it is such a strong, evocative set of, circumstances that kind of take you into what he's going to show you. And like you said, the first image is of this billiard table. And again, he's childlike in his drawing. There's real precision, but imprecision. And there's saturated colors. He's using colored pencils. And
Beautiful colors.
yeah,
Yeah.
really
Strong
incredible.
colors.
Yeah, these aren't your child's colored pencils for sure. And
Yeah.
and there's the image of the billiard table, and as you noted earlier, working on changing the rules is written in the upper right hand side. And that's kind of like you're in the curve of this chain curtain, and there's this one image, and because it's so dark in there, there's spotlights on each of the images. So that's really the only thing that you're seeing clearly in the room is the
Yes.
is the images themselves.
And the drawings are all on the left side of the exhibition, which means that the curve, so the curved wall, and you see the people who are also just there in the space from the Barbican, and they kind of walk along, and you feel like there's a nightclub vibe on the left and the museum vibe on the right. No, on the
Yeah.
right, a nightclub vibe, and on the left, an old timey museum like vibe, because you see people walking like in a nightclub. And then there's that music that is a bit ominous. So you're kind of in a sort of hybrid space. And then
Yeah.
you have drawings of very specific settings and very specific bodies along that
Yeah.
wall.
That's a really good point, because this red strip of that's on the ground on the right-hand side on the outer, like, you could almost see that as a walkway. And if you want to, you could
Yes.
sort of view things from afar. You could almost see that as,
Hmm.
this is the
Hmm.
pedestrian walkway, and then if you wanna cross the line into the club, you can, but there is a bit of
Hmm.
a threshold feeling there. And now that you mention
Yes.
it, there were people while I was at the exhibition that did seem to stay along the outer side. It was like sort of a
Huh.
psychological divide. There was this one woman who was there, and look, maybe she'd been there before and just wanted to do a sweep of it again. Who knows?
Stroll by.
Maybe she'd already had sort of a bigger look, but yeah, there is, because the curve of the chain curtain ends at that line. So it's like, the chain curtain is basically the inside, is kind of framing the
Yes. You're
inside.
inside the club.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is really cool. I just like, how clever. How clever
How
to
clever. It's
use.
so well
Oh,
thought through.
it is.
So
Yeah.
beautiful. And then you come into this space and you're completely taken by the drawings that have I think this could win the trophy of the exhibition with the biggest number of male genitalia
Oh, hands down.
in the year. We're
Yeah.
still in May, but I think we
Yeah.
can already give that. And the male, can we talk about the male genitalia, the peni?
The
I would
penile.
love it if the plural of penis would be peni. It would be so nice. But they're so cute.
Oh,
They're so
I don't
they're
know.
the
See, I
most
don't know.
adorable penises you'll
I
ever
don't know.
see,
I
with a
don't know
little
if
pink
adorable.
mushroomy.
Yes.
Oh my god, so nice, with lots of hair drawn frantically around them. And they're just so beautiful, and they're being sometimes in some drawings. I'm looking at one of them because I took a few pictures where you see the background seems like the type of lights, cones of light that you have in concerts or in nightclubs. So there's kind of a golden light and then a purple light, and they're wearing these glasses. They look like 3D glasses back in the day when you
Yeah.
had like 3 films in 3 decades, and you bought them in a magazine or something. They came with a
Yeah.
magazine, remember? And then they're completely naked, and one of them to the left is dancing. I love the way he draws hands, by the way. And the other one is just kind of mindlessly touching his penis.
Yeah.
Uh, and they're just having fun. They're just kind
Mhm.
of like there. And also, what is beautiful is that the bodies are either brown, dark brown, or a bit light brown, yellowish. So they're not white bodies. And they have lots of hair. Like they have leg hair, pubic hair, chest hair, and the my favorites, armpit hair. Like
Yeah.
they have the biggest bushes,
Yeah.
bush like armpit hair that is so gloriously drawn. It's drawn with affection and love and maybe self-love. I don't know how Soufiane Ababri's body is, but there's also a kind of self-depiction there, I guess.
Yeah.
um and it's just really beautiful. And the guy on the right has blue hair, so you can see that it's an alternative space,
Mhm.
alternative bodies that are not accepted in society in the daylight.
Yeah.
How would these bodies behave during the day?
And I loved, so he, all of the figures and all of the drawings have pink cheeks. And so he talked about
Yes,
how this is showing
yes,
blushing because it's the only emotion that you can't fake. I mean, there's not an actor out there, maybe Meryl Streep or something, who can blush on demand. And so, he wanted to incorporate that in as, that's kind of an innocent thing as well, right? It's like,
yes,
this,
yes.
I'm having a pleasurable moment. This is how my body responds. And it's such a human
Or
thing. I love it.
a
Yeah.
post-orgasmic thing as well, because you can see that a lot of these drawings could be post-coitum drawings.
Sure.
They're really beautiful tired bodies lying down, and that could
Mhm.
also be the blushing. But you're quite right, he said. And it's so beautiful because you have those brown skins, and then in the place where the cheeks are, you have like this really powerfully drawn pink area that is
Yeah.
so cute. It's just so nice. And there's another drawing, I don't quite remember what it's called, where you have in the background these spots of color, a little
Yeah.
bit like, again, nightclub lighting through a glass. What do you call them? Glass balls. Glass
Like disco balls, disco
disco balls,
balls,
yes,
yeah.
through a disco ball. And then you have a man in profile, and the other man behind him is holding his head, and you don't
Yeah.
know if the red is makeup or if it's blood. So you
Ah,
don't quite know what's going on.
that's true, yeah.
And again, they have the blushing thing going on. So you could see that there's a lot of stories being told at the same time. It's a very layered couple of drawings.
Mhm.
Well, a body of work, because there's superimposing stories being told. There's another drawing which is outside of a nightclub that I referred to as well, where you have different kinds of bodies. You have male bodies for sure, but you
Yeah.
also have trans bodies. So there's different stories being told here, and he's very adamant in saying that he's interested in, post-colonial issues, in immigration issues. He's really interested in anything that is othering and connected to the history of both countries, Morocco and France as well, and
Hmm.
Europe in general. And that was the thing that kind of touched me, which was that the first thing I thought about was George Michael and the cruising
Yeah.
episode, because like an Iranian female friend of mine was saying, she was saying, in Europe, you guys think that you're very developed, but I can see how oppressed women are here as well,
Yeah. Yeah.
in completely different ways. And she was really shocked when she arrived in Europe and she saw the ads for for cars with women in bikinis,
Mm.
and that's something that she wouldn't see in Iran, and she didn't love it either. So that's interesting, to define different kinds of oppression and to understand different kinds of oppression,
Yeah.
or tacit repression, ingrained
Mm.
repression as well. It's really interesting to see that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, on the joyful end, one of my favorites, I think this might be my favorite, is there's a mattress on the floor. There's a guy standing, you see his back, he's naked. He's holding up like an old school iPod,
Oh
and
yeah,
uh,
I
and
love
it's
that
and
one.
it's connected by a cord to a couple of old school-ish speakers. And then there's a guy
Yeah,
just laying on the mattress, kind of with his head and on his hand, and he's propped up on his elbow, just watching this guy dance like crazy with his
yeah.
iPod. And on the mattress, there's a book that's open, and it just says "Men in the Sun." And I just thought, like, I just, who can't imagine this scene in their own lives at some point in their lives?
Yes, yeah. I also had the feeling when I got in of, this is really, really very far from my universe. Like, I
Mm,
don't know what he's talking about. I don't experience this. I hardly ever go clubbing. And gay clubs, which are obviously for, straight, bisexual, and lesbian females, but maybe not lesbians, but like your preferred clubs. I don't know about you, but I think, that's where you feel safe and you like going if you want to have a night out without any,
mhm.
trouble coming
Hustle.
towards you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're closing up in, Vauxhall
Mhm.
was the area where you would go, and they're all closing up. And
Hold
a
on,
gay
why are they
friend of mine was saying,
closing?
like, lifestyle changes, also self policing, maybe. I don't
Huh.
know. It's just not gentrification of a lot of areas where you can't really behave the way you did before, and you don't feel as free and um invisible to the rest of society as you did in. I mean, Vauxhall now is not what it was back in the day,
God, it used to be like the mecca for, I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
my stepson used to, that was sort of his go-to as a young gay man. And
exactly.
and I remember a gay friend of mine telling me, that yeah, that was just the area. There were so many places to go. There was this one place called Hoist, which I loved because it was sort of,
Yes.
it just, the imagination runs wild, doesn't it? But like you
Yes.
could you could get hoisted up and like thrown into like this Velcro wall. It's like fun. I mean, yeah, just wow, that's really a shame to know that they're
But still, I felt, oh, this is
yeah.
not at all my comfort zone. I don't know much about this culture. And I also thought, having lived in France for many years, speaking the language, fluent, more than fluently, writing in French, all of that, and coming across and having friends from Morocco, I also felt really ignorant. I have to say, this podcast is teaching me how that the more you know, the less you know, a very
Mm,
Socratic exercise, because I was thinking I had to look up the relationship between Morocco and France, the colonial relationship between
mm.
Morocco and France, because I didn't know the story. I mean, I knew it, but I didn't know exactly. So Morocco's history is quite complex because they had to
Yeah.
elbow their way in, against Algeria. It's still unstable in the southwest, and they were a protectorate. They weren't really a colony, as it were. I mean, they were colonized, obviously. It wasn't that long. It was like 40 years, about 40 years. But then the French imperialistic culture and power remained very strongly in the culture. I mean,
Mm.
if you hear Moroccans speak, they speak exactly like you speak in the rest of France. It's really, the language takes a big hold on, and the French really did colonize a lot through language and culture, and it's very strong there. And if you want to study, you go to France to study, which is exactly what Soufiane Ababri did for many reasons, I'm sure. That's kind of your aspirational
Mm.
thing, is to kind of come to Europe and particularly to France and study there while being fetishized. So
Mm.
a few writers, I'm thinking of Abdelataya, talk a lot about the fetishization of Arab bodies, which is almost worse in some ways, especially in the gay community, where you want to have a little Arab boy, and
Mhm.
it's kind of positive discrimination as well, and tied to a community that is not very visible, so you can't really talk about your problems regarding that as well. And the exhibition made me think of Abdelataya,
Mm.
actually, who is a Moroccan writer who writes in French. He writes in bad French, so it's exactly the same thing as Soufiane Ababri with drawing.
Okay.
He doesn't write in academic French. He's very expressionistic in the way he writes. It's very passionate and very, descriptive and very emotional. He writes in a sort of flow of consciousness. In 2018, he felt the need of writing a letter to his mum, who is illiterate. There's an issue with his identity. And in 2018, the government started like devised this new rule against anything untoward in regards to the Moors. So that meant, no gay,
Mm.
propaganda in art or wherever. And so he wrote a letter called Homosexuality Explained to My Mother. And the letter is addressed to the mum. And it's really beautiful because he does say, I'm exactly like you. The reason why I respect my own identity and talk about it is because I'm like you. You taught me how
Mm.
to be a person who fights for their own rights. You were the master of the house and you fought every day. And and the pain of telling her that she taught him how to be himself and her
Mm.
not understanding that is very,
Wow. Yeah.
it's patent in the letter. And so he ends the letter by saying, in my books and in my conferences, I defend you. I tell you, I make you exist. I dream that one day, if someone insults me in front of you, saying, your son, your brother is Zamel, that you might answer, no, he is not Zamel. He is Mathali. I think Mathali is like ideal or something like that.
Mm.
It's a word, a simple little word that changes everything. A word revolution. Decide for yourselves. I do not demand anything. I proceed. I fly as I am able. I pray like mother does, in my own way. I write. There is something terrible in each of us here, hatred of the Moroccan. Where does it come from? Why does it remain? Why not dare to be ourselves, to break free? To break free through provocation and scandal. In any case, there is no other way, only to forget fear and face the world naked. Voila! Again, in tenderness, my truth for you. I don't like unnecessary confrontations. I am for necessary battles. The war I wage with and against Morocco is useful. I believe that sincerely. I must not be the only one. I can speak, write, for me and for others. I do it. It's my duty. A warm salam to you all. And this was translated from the French by Ricardo Morato. So it really made me think of the
Mm.
exhibition. I fight, I face the world naked which was exactly what you were saying. Because when you're saying in the beginning, oh, this was not, combative. And I was like, she has rose tinted glasses, doesn't she? But
Mm.
actually, you're absolutely right. It's just the nakedness
Mm-hmm.
is there to face the world, like Abdullah Taya says. It's not to say, here we are, this is a pride moment, No, it really is facing the world naked. And
Yeah.
I loved it, for that.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a really beautiful letter. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, it's such a powerful thing, isn't it? And I think because yeah, I mean, what does it mean to fight?
Mm,
I mean, what does that mean? Does it
mm.
mean to say you don't and you must and you should have and I demand? Yeah, that's part of fighting. That is definitely a valuable part of fighting. But I mean, this way of just saying, I'm here and I'm going to be my presence known, and I'm going to dare to be myself to break free, as he says in this letter. That you're exactly right. There is such a beautiful correlation between Sufyan's work and expressing what he's talking about here. I am naturally non-combative. I mean,
Same.
I
Non-confrontational
I
to the end,
mean,
baby.
not that there's not value there. It's just not the way I'm wired to sort
No,
of
of
have a
course. Yeah.
throwdown of the gauntlet. And I admire people who are and can
Mm-hmm.
be. But I
Mm-hmm.
love this notion of just like sidling up to the thing and being like, you know what? Here it is. Kind of like, and it's not going anywhere. So good luck to you. But this is what I am. This is what I represent.
Especially when it comes to issues of identity, I think, of who
Mm,
you are and how you position yourself in the world, and to what extent you're free to be who you are, and to what extent you have to do inner work within yourself. And that's why I love what Abdullah Taya says, but also Soufiane Ababri. I'm Moroccan. I am
mm,
of that culture, and I have to think about that culture because it's in me, and I have to defend that culture. When he says, I love you, mom, I am like you. How can you not see that I'm like you? He describes his mother screaming all the time and,
mm,
like, just ruling that household of 5 children, I think, and a
mm,
dad who just screaming her lungs out and just like battling every day for things to be okay, for things to be there and to function. And that was her struggle, and that was her fight. And he's not like that. He's not someone who screams, but he's screaming in another way. And he's not someone who prays, but he is
mhm,
praying, he's writing. And this commonality positions and of fights is so beautiful to see. And this very strange dichotomy of, I don't want to be that Moroccan, but I want to be that other Moroccan. I don't want that part of the culture, but I am that other part of the culture,
mhm,
is really interesting. And it's really beautiful to see how, I think, at a certain age you've done your own identity search, and then you can put it out there in a way that is non-combative and that is
mm,
done with compassion and love, because it's so easy to shout no. It's much more difficult to be compassionate and to bring love and humanity and find humanity in the people who hate you the most.
mm,
I think that really is, and that's why I bought Maggie Nelson's book on freedom. She just published a book, 2023, I think. It was at the Barbican, like right after the exhibition. I went to the
mm,
bookshop and I saw the book, and she struggles with that too. In the introduction, she says, what does that mean to live as if you were free? Is that the solution? Or is the solution to think of a former time where there was freedom, or work towards a moment when freedom will finally be reached?
mm,
How is it? And is freedom tied in with care? And that's what the book is about. And I am
mm,
just really very, very, I'm urging to read it because I'm really interested in seeing what she says, because that is the issue now, isn't it? In a polarized society, as you often say, how do you position yourself? I'm a very angry person. Now I think we have a duty of care to people who are being oppressed. I don't know. I'm lost, Emily. I'm so
Yeah,
lost. I don't know
yeah,
what to
no,
do and
for
what to
sure.
say and how to react.
But I think that, I think, not to bring it back to Schitt's Creek again and my favorite, which
Yes,
is
please do.
Kelly, but it's
I
like
watched it yesterday.
I watched it yesterday as well, and it was the episode where Moira was running for the council, just one of my faves.
Oh,
Yeah, but in that show, they are doing that very thing. They are assuming the fight's over. We're not gonna be a show that's depicting more of the fight. We're a show depicting a reality where the fight doesn't exist. Does the fight still exist? Yes, of course. I mean, absolutely. But there is real power in doing, I think, what Soufiane Ababri is doing, which is saying, this is a thing that's here. And I'm going to show it to you, and I'm going to sidle up to you with it, with an innocence and a care, and, in a non
and love.
confrontational
There's a
way, and
lot of love
love
in there.
and
Yeah.
joy, in a way. So, not so I hope that you'll accept it, but just hopefully maybe that you'll see it.
The first thought I had was like, what a stupid move, honestly. Like,
Hmm.
because we have stupid thoughts as well. They just come up. And I
Yeah.
was thinking, what a stupid move. Like, people are going to say, this is disgusting. And first of all,
Yeah.
they're all naked. Why are they showing penises? Because when you go in, you are warned that there's
Yeah.
nakedness and that if you don't want to be confronted with that, maybe don't see the show, which I found the funniest trigger warning ever.
Yeah.
Because
You're naked in your bathroom in the morning, for God's sake. Do you have a trigger warning outside on your bathroom door? I mean, don't
Jesus,
look in the mirror
yes.
if you can't take it.
Just don't look at your body. I remember having a conversation about homosexual couples adopting kids, and I was just saying, as usual, as I don't do that anymore, but or I do it as a provocation, but very innocently saying like, when can this happen normally, already? I'm just sick of this being an argument. And looking at the person I was talking to, who I presumed was on my side,
Mm,
kind of looking bewildered and saying, wow, you're very progressive, aren't you?
wow.
I mean, that's something to think about.
Wow.
And I just thought, even if you present a couple, same sex couple, who just wants to parent, which is the purest thing you can think of, those people will not be convinced. So,
Mhm.
of course, it was a stupid thought. And of course, you
But
need to show a safe space where
yeah,
you're happy and you have pleasure and you actually can be yourself.
I'm not in love with seeing penises. Like, it's like not my favorite image, even though his are quite sweet with the pink
But
tips
drawn like
and
that, come on.
yeah.
They look like pink mushrooms.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But still, no, it was
I
great.
find it very joyful. I love
It
it.
was,
I love.
yeah.
What is the work that you would have taken home?
My favorite work was certainly the mattress on the floor and the
Hmm.
the dancing and the chilling out. That was just so, so good. What would you have taken home?
So my favorite drawing, and I have no idea what it's called. I took a picture of it because I really loved it, and it is a corner. In the background, it's a corner of a room. It's not a nightlife setting. Maybe that's why I liked it, because I'm not a big clubbing, going out at night person. And there's two men. One is kneeling on his right leg, and the other leg is bent. He's turning his back to us, and then there's another one who's facing us. They both have their hands in the air as if they're dancing, and so you have from the back a little penis hanging out like a mushroomy cute thing, and then the other one obviously is facing us, which is the only red color that you have. And then you have the hands are not drawn, they're just drawn like hair. And the bodies are full of hair,
Full of hair, yeah.
chest hair, belly hair, armpit hair, leg
Butt
hair,
hair,
butt hair.
yeah.
Beautiful. and they have these haircuts as well, like the fades that um, are now fashionable in the UK as well. And one of them has a beard, and they just look so into what they're doing that their faces are very much concentrated in what they're doing. They're not showing themselves to us.
Mm-hmm.
And I just love it because the body is so unapologetically drawn with pleasure, and you can see the excitement because the hands are kind of like, phew, they kind of turn into kind of branches or little twigs or hair, and they're drawn in the same way as the body hair. So I just found that really interesting, and
Mm.
and it also takes me to the way he draws, which is probably in bed, kind of dreaming and imagining and reminiscing. Maybe he says that only 10% of the people he draws are the people he knows, so he kind of probably amalgamates,
Mm.
references stuff in his life, things he's done. And who hasn't been naked with their partner dancing in the morning, when it's really hot, and you put some music on? I just love it.
Yeah.
And I love the bodies. I love the way they're drawn. I mean, the butt is just two circles. And I love also the way he draws the bodies because they're bulging. Everything's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
erupting. They're kind of bloated with desire and pleasure,
Mm-hmm.
and those bodies in particular look like that. And
Yeah.
I just find them so beautiful. And I would definitely have this in my home for sure. It's a shame I
Yeah,
don't.
good. Well, I mean, I think the bottom line here is that people should check out Soufiane Ababri. Thank you so much, Joanna. That was lovely. And thank you to all the listeners for listening from all across the world. It has just been such a joy to see more and more of you joining us on this exhibition tour. Let us know what you want to hear about, what you're seeing. You can find us on Instagram. You can rate, review, subscribe, recommend it to your friends. That would be fantastic, and we can watch this community grow even more.
Thank you to Emily. This was really, really joyful. The next episode will be focusing on Labaina Himid at the Royal Academy. So we're very, very happy to do an episode on this incredible artist. And yes, so until next time, have a great couple of weeks. Go see exhibitions. We go see them so that you have to. And, visit your local galleries. You don't have to go to big museums. Support artists anywhere in any form. And tell us about it. Follow us on Instagram and tell us about what you've been looking at, what you've been seeing. Until next time, take care. Have a great life. And bye, Emily. Thank you.
Bye bye. Take care.